Hey y'all, today we have a 2023 Porsche Macan base. This is the car I have on loan while my car is actually in the shop, and again, because I seem to think there's a need for people to review the cars that people actually buy, not necessarily the high-end version. This one kind of seems to fit the mold. So as you can see, it's a bog standard 2023 Macan. I think from external appearances, it does have the optional 20-inch rims. This, of course, is the four-cylinder version. That's 261 horsepower, 295 foot-pounds of torque from a 2-liter four-cylinder. That's turboed. And if I'm correct, this engine, of course, is shared across the Volkswagen platform. So this should be the same engine as in the Q5. And anything else that uses this 2.0 turbo engine of the Volkswagen Automotive Group. So I got it shoved in my garage right now because I've had some bad luck for loaners where having it parked out the street or going places, I've had somebody back up and touch one before, and scratching the bumper and putting a little mark on some of the plastic trim caused me some great pain, as I had to pay for that to be repaired. Whereas, if it was my own car, I'd probably be mad and just deal with it, but loaners, that's a different story. So while this is a second generation Macan, the Macan has basically looked the same throughout its lifespan with Porsche after its introduction in the year 2015. Not much has changed in exterior styling. The rear, which I'll show in a second, has been the most of the modifications, where it's gone from distinct lights to having the light bar style, which seems to be very common across the Porsche line these days, and of course other brands. Trying to start this classification of cars where you have your point A to point B, your stylish car, or your car that is just fun to drive. And while not every car cleanly fits in those three distinctions, I don't necessarily classify as one of the simple point A to point B car. For most folks, I mean, this does have the name brand cachet, so this would typically be somebody's first Porsche, but it also does fit into the fun to drive category. Even in the base model, this has the spirit of a Porsche, let's say, where the handling of it is pretty crisp, very dynamic and fun. And, all the buzzy words, it's fun to drive. That's really all I can say about it there. And for some, it might actually be attractive. I like how it looks. I don't necessarily think in this color, black on black with the gray wheels, it's the best attributes, but in Miami blue, whatever, I like it. It's pretty. But for point A to point B, I mean, as I'll share here, and most people know by being a Porsche, it's not going to be that. I mean, yes, it does that just fine, but you're paying a pretty penny for just a car to take you from point A to point B. So clearly, if you're buying this car, you're buying it for stylish reasons or fun to drive reasons, not necessarily because it's the best grocery getter. The other style bits on this car I like are, its side view mirrors they're pretty, they're sculpted, and they're just larger versions of what you would see on their sports cars and other vehicles. And these little bits on the exterior of this car that give it some of the style and some of the attractiveness, I think, that I seem to like on it. I enjoy the front end of the car immensely. It just has that quintessential Porsche look with the position of the headlights and, of course, the Porsche badge prominently located right here in the center of the hood. So we're inside the Porsche right now, and given that I've never seen a sticker for this one, but knowing that Porsche nickel and dime you for every little option, and that's what's awesome about Porsche, and also what sucks, is that you can make this thing anything you want. But in this case, what I think here is that this was optioned out with the keyless ignition, which, key in your pocket like most cars, but in Porsche, Le Mans style still, so it's on the left, and this is not a key. This is just here. It's how it's like almost an on-off switch, and this is how you start it. So this being the Macan form, the dash cluster is very similar to the Boxster Cayman of similar vintage, with 2 analog dials and then an LCD screen on the very right, which can show different information like torque split, basically your adaptive cruise control, what's going on. It'll keep you abreast of what's going on there. some vehicle statistics, temp, oil temp, and your battery voltage and stuff like that. What's going on with the radio, what's going on with your phone, and then your navigation instructions, and of course, some more driving stats, tire pressure, torque split. Actually, interestingly enough, one of the things that you do see on here, and there you go, is the map. So clearly being in the garage and being behind my house, there's nothing really to see at this point. Now moving on to the infotainment, Porsche moved on to the second gen Macan. I think that was in 2018, 2019. And with that, they increased the screen size. So now you have this much wider screen. What I've found is it's a little busy for my liking when you're trying to do stuff. And it works. I mean, it's quick. It's not a slouch. Things pop up and move fairly quickly as you want to go around. Let me get that off. The map is pretty responsive. It does a pretty good job. Now, of course, it's in this same thing is in all the Porsche products, and it's pretty consistent, similar to BMW and consistency in the interior of their cars. Porsche has also moved to more of your capacitive buttons, so Porsche has also moved to your capacitive touch buttons here. So it looks pretty. Don't get me wrong, this piano black gloss finish and all this, but while driving, as noted by many other journalists, it's not the easiest thing to press. And we could go back to some firmer buttons and stuff like that. And in Macan fashion, as it's been the entire life of this car, your climate control for driver and passengers on either side here. So there's nothing in the center console up front, but closer to the shifter, where you can make all your settings and adjustments. And then of course down here you have your different things for modifying how the Macan behaves. So in this case, it has a sport mode, and it has some things to adjust the auto start off-road and things like that. But on ones with more options, you would see here are some of your exhaust and other things. But this being a base model, there's not much here, and that's that for your center console. Oh, and of course this thing, I almost forgot. The Porsche PDK transmission, which is 7-speed transmission, dual clutch transmission, amazing. We've seen it a million times in all their products. It's a great transmission. It provides excitement. It provides all the things. I think it's what adds on to this vehicle being so immensely fun to drive. Looky here. Clearly, I did not look in the back seat, so now we can talk about what this Porsche is. So this Porsche stickered for $66,000. And it has a few options, which are probably a little fine, so I'll read them off here. So, found the sticker. Maybe I should have looked at the whole car before I started filming. But anyways, so it looks like I was right with some of these options here. So the car clearly has, heated steering wheel, $280, roof rails, $410, the rims, $29.50. So we're talking about $3,000. The window trim in high gloss black, that looks like it's about $240. And then premium package plus, and what do you get with that? That is your ventilated front seats, lane change assistant, power seats with memory package, heated seats in the rear, panoramic roof system, and LED headlights with PDLS plus. And that package is, again, $39.10, bringing this vehicle to a grand total of $66,740. Clearly, not your point A to point B car, but there's some value to this if you are looking for a car to have some fun in, and have a little style. And again, if you're just a brand name person, it's a Porsche. So those things cost money. Me, I like how it drives. I should do a comparison between this and the X3 I actually own, because it's kind of in the same ballpark, and I do believe that the BMW X3 is better value for the money, because at $66,000 you actually get an M3 with the Turbo 6 and pretty much fully loaded. So again, you're paying for the Porsche name there, and it may or may not be worth it to you. So like everybody else, we'll talk about the interior room. So the front seat, of course, 5'10", with a seat where it's at. Everything's a good reach for me. And it goes for most cars because of my size or whatever. There isn't really an issue where there's no car where I'm not comfortable in. Like small cars, big. Well, let me take it back. A Suburban, or even when the H2 was a thing, I was actually uncomfortable in it because of my slight stature. You know, I felt like I was swimming in those cars. However, in this car, the Macan, the front seat and everything is in a great position for me. Now, let's talk about this back seat. So, I'm gonna get in, and the seat, you know, like we talk about, is where it should be for somebody like me driving, and there's plenty of room for me. Plenty of headroom. It doesn't look like it, but there is probably about that much room between my head and the ceiling. Things are pretty roomy in here. So continuing on, the backseat of the Macan does have a couple of USB ports, Type-C of course. Of course, after looking at the options, we see it has heated seats back here and some sort of temperature control, which I guess the fan speed is what it is, and you can just kind of modify whatever temperature is coming back based on what's going on up front. I don't know, because I'm not sitting back here. So, and as I was mentioning earlier about the rear light bar, that is it. The Macan has maintained a consistent look, which is also trademark of most Porsches. So it's a very slow evolution for their cars as they go on in years. I mean, a Porsche is a Porsche is a Porsche. When you see one, they fit the mold most times. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention what I thought of the factory stereo in here. So, you know, the base price of Macan is in the 50,000 range. And I think at that price, you would have an above average stereo. Not perfect. I know there's still burn mics or stuff like that, but it should still pretty much hit, you know. And this one, doing my new test song for cars, this is where I could test the range, don't judge me, is Lemon by Drake. That song has an extreme high dynamic range in terms of between vocals, bass lines that are hitting, and all sorts of stuff. And this car, while it can do about 90% of the song, the 10%, which is the bass line, is clearly not possible in this car. It's completely missing. So it's kind of sad to say that this car, which stickers at about $66,000 after seeing the sticker price on here, that's not quite well. So again, you know, I think this car still is the one that you drive if you really want to go around some turns fast and you like how it looks. But for some other things like sound system, that's not it. And one could say typical on Porsche, say if you had a flat six Porsche, you can say, yeah, I'm here just to listen to the engine. But this is not it. I mean, it is not a bad sounding four-cylinder engine, but it's clearly not harmonious like the flat six that you hear in a lot of the other Porsche products. So driving the Macan, I've kind of alluded to this before. It drives very, very well. If you are into the type of ride that I like, so that's, you know, completely subjective, right? So a lot of folks might like a cushier ride or even something a little less sporting. But if you are for that type of sporty ride, or even what I would call an elevated hot hatch type ride, this thing checks all the boxes. I mean, it's very, very tight around turns. I don't have much feel of understeer on this car, even with it being all-wheel drive. So it's very, very dynamic in its handling. I don't feel like I'm out of control in any tight cornering operations. As far as acceleration and stuff goes, it's not going to be a world beater considering it's the four-cylinder. As you can hear the engine, I mean, it will go. And, you know, you can take turns in it, but it's not gonna clearly be like Macan S or one of the six-cylinder ones before all of the four-cylinder luxury SUV brands. This thing, I believe, is a sub 6 second 0 to 60. I'll put it down in the video just to make sure we have it there. But if I remember reading right, I think it's either 6.1 or maybe underneath that for that, and that's good enough. This car does pass the test of if you're at a traffic light and you need to get past the person next to you to make a left turn, I'm pretty confident you can do that. And for the point A to point B'ers, I think that is something you should look for in any car. All right, so driving this, I do notice one little nitpick. about the dash. So say you're driving, you have this thing in GPS mode. There is no active indication of how much fuel is left, as you can see here. Like, you literally have the map, you have your tach, speedometer, what gear you're in, and your trip meter, odometer, stuff like that. So I don't know. That's a little odd one that I just peeped. So with the CarPlay interface going on with the Porsche entertainment system, you can kind of see what I'm talking about with the busyness now. So you have CarPlay here, then you have the Porsche PCM stuff that's still over here. And so there's a lot going on. It almost reminds me, for those of you who are IT people, the Metro interface on the old Windows Phone and all the tiles. Except for in this case, it's a little bit busy for a car as far as I'm concerned. Annoyance with the PCM. Notice also that you have two sets of audio controls right next to each other, and that's also just a little odd and maybe confusing. I don't know. I just think that maybe the answer here is CarPlay take up full screen, or the media device, the radio button, then turns back into like a generic radio on-off button or radio function button, instead of like the controls for changing the station and pausing the radio and stuff. So driving this as a regular car and regular places, and yes, Northside St. Louis is a regular place. It's okay. Again, it does have quite a firm ride. But outside of that, I mean, this I think is a perfectly capable A to B car, although I don't think it fits in that range, just because it costs a lot. And I think most folks who just want something to get them to work, will go run errands, and aren't really the ones that say, hey, I'm gonna go spend $66,000 on a big hot hatch, which is what I call this car. Yeah, so big hot hatch. It is, I mean, would be about the shape of your typical crossover SUV, but the handling dynamics, the kind of low roof line in the back, although for me it's 5'10", I fit in there just fine. I qualify as more like it drives like a hot hatch. You're slightly higher than, like, say, your random Golf R or Civic Type R. And it's pretty swift in this form, even with the 4-cylinder engine. Not super fast like your Macan GTS, but faster than average. I think most of these cars below 6 seconds 0 to 60 are faster than average, but they're not like super fast. And yeah, a little bit of a quality factor though. I mean, granted, these are not the best streets, but you can hear like a little give on the panoramic roof. Let me be a little quiet here. I'm trying to actually avoid these disruptions in the road. I'm not going to call them potholes, they're just disruptions. I'm not sure if that's picking up on the mic or not, but yeah, there you go. So driving the 2023 Porsche Macan base, like I was saying, this is a fun CR-V or a fun RAV4. This isn't quite the point A to point B crossover. This is one with a little style and some handling. And again, coming into turns in this thing, there's nothing here to really not do that you wouldn't do like a car. I mean, it handles spectacularly and it's just fun to drive. And this is what I say goes beyond point A to point B. But this is the Macan that most people would buy, because again, the Macan S, the GTS, those are great or whatever, but I'm pretty sure that this is the best seller of Macans. Another thing, as you can see, we're booted up in the